started and move on down the agenda efficiently. Today I'll call this meeting of the Amarillo Local Government Corporation's Board of Directors to order on Wednesday, the first day of August of 2012. We do have a quorum of the board present. Thank you, gentlemen, for your attendance today, and our guests, thank you for your attendance being part of this meeting as well. The first item of business for consideration of the body will be item number 2, the approval of the minutes from our last meeting held on June the 6th of 2012. Board members, you received a copy of the minutes in your packet. Any additions, corrections, or deletions to make? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion that the minutes be approved as presented.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded, the minutes be approved. Those in favor indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the minutes of June 6th, 2012 are approved. Item number 2 on the agenda is an action item for our consideration. It's the consideration of the approval of the streetscape funding agreement. This is an agreement between the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone and the Amarillo Local Government Corporation. It provides $2.7 million in tiers resources to fund the necessary and called for streetscape improvements in and around the Convention Center Hotel, the parking garage, and the multi-purpose event venue on public right-of-way. The agreement has been previously approved by Mr. Brown's Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Board. The Potter County Commissioners Court reviewed and commented favorably on the application, and yesterday the City Commission authorized their execution of the tiers agreement. You have a copy of the proposed agreement in your packet. It follows format-wise, I think, similar arrangements of this sort. And Marcus, the Amarillo Local Government Corporation is stylized here as the developer in this case. The real meat of the documents on page 2 begins on page 2, defining the site as the blocks in which the development will take place. The project is defined as certain streetscape improvements within and along the public right-of-way adjacent to the proposed development. And the amount of tiered participation is defined in section 3, which is up to $2.7 million. Questions, comments?
Does that include any trash cans?
It probably does include some trash cans.
I'll vote.
This actually does not follow any previous form agreement because it's the first time we've done an intergovernmental agreement. But we did track as closely as possible agreements we've done for others.
Okay.
As to this matter, as I previously advised this board, I'm acting on behalf of the tiers board, so I'm present to be counted for the quorum, but in the event I think there's a quorum anyway. My intent would be to abstain from the vote, or actually thinking about the tiers board on this particular agreement.
This $2.7 million would be coupled with the $400,000 from Center City that we anticipate formalizing in the next couple of weeks to bring us to the $3.1 million figure, which close to Joe, I believe, is the dollar amount for such work and the budgets that we dealt with.
The tiers board raised the question of why are we doing this when we don't have the MPEB agreement in place yet. And I accepted the fact that we just needed to take a leap of faith and go ahead and do this. But there is a bit of uncertainty maintaining because tiers commitment was for streetscape over a broader area than just around the hotel. If something strange happens between now and putting the MPEB agreement in place, there might be some hiccup. Commitment is present for the tiers board to do what is necessary.
And I think the question came up yesterday about the timing of this. Obviously, this will be an expenditure that will take place toward the end of the construction work. Appropriate documentation will be submitted to us by Wallace Pajala for those elements, and then we will reimburse from these resources and the Center City resources as appropriate, in this case up to $2.7 million. Other questions or comments regarding the agreement?
Move approval.
Or second? Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the agreement be approved. Those in favor indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries and we're approved.
I abstain.
The next item on the agenda, item number 4, is a resolution dealing with our committee structure for the ALGC. This particular item would amend or expand the charge that was originally assigned by the board to what we have been calling the Document Development and Review Committee. That initial charge was given, that committee was created back in September of 2011. The amendment renames the committee the Project Advisory Committee and continues our previous responsibilities as a committee in terms of document development and review kind of work, and adds the responsibility to assist in the administrative implementation of the downtown redevelopment projects, just as a communications tool as much as anything else, to continue to effectively communicate with Wallace Pajala and the city staff as we're moving forward. We're continuing to learn the best ways to conduct our business, and this resolution would expand the work of that committee to allow that kind of communications to take place. Certainly, any actions or commitments would still need to be taken up by the full board, and this is an advisory committee by definition in our bylaws, and it's advisory. We report back to the board as it relates to any actions that we might be recommending to the board as a committee. Mr. Norris, is there anything else to add in terms of that resolution?
Well, at least some, President, it's might be viewed as a housekeeping type item, where we're just authorizing the committee to continue functioning into the next phase of the project.
Being sure we have the I's dotted and the T's crossed, and we're doing the appropriate chores as called for in our appropriate underlying documents.
A question, in reviewing back over previous documents that we've passed, there's not been any establishment of any executive committee who can make binding decisions without the full approval of the board.
That's true. That authority still rests solely with this body.
That's something like that disconnect that we discussed a year ago, where you're chartered both as a unit of government and a nonprofit corporation. So I can't imagine personally when that opportunity would either be appropriate, but no, we not have so.
Jared, are we still going to have access to, I forget his name, the guy on your staff as our construction watchdog? We also have to come up with what to label him.
Yes, if you would like, when we go to the update, I would be glad to, I don't have you here to introduce him, but I can do it in absentia. It's probably a good thing. I don't know if the rest of the board's had a chance to.
He's not here, you can commit him to almost anything.
You can. I won't find him. No, I can talk about him all I like.
Well, since the labor on this deal is so cheap, I'm gonna recommend that leadership we approve it.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second that the resolution be approved. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the approval of the resolution amending the scope of and renaming this particular committee indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries and the resolution passes. Item number 5 on our agenda is intended to be an update on the status of downtown development projects. It was my privilege, along with David Wallace and Costa and Joe yesterday to appear before the Amarillo City Commission and present them, along with Richard, speaking before the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Board, the status of our downtown development efforts. Reminded the body of the public-private partnership nature of the relationship. Reminded them of the documents and the agreements and the understandings and the leases that have been put in place for, in particular to this point, for the hotel and the parking garage, and left it with them that there's still a lot of heavy lifting to be done in terms of the hotel and parking structure, but a large part of that heavy lifting rests on the shoulders of our development partners in terms of finalizing the financing, in terms of moving forward with the preparation of the detailed architectural plans and specifications, in terms of the procurement and the engagement of the construction contractor, the construction manager at risk. We also talked yesterday with the commission about the anticipated deadlines, timelines for the project that became real in terms of expectations when the lease and development agreement was executed a little bit earlier. Those expectations being the grand opening for the hotel and the parking structure in the summertime of 2015, with construction set to commence no later than the end of 2013. And those general dates tie back into specific dates that are in the lease and development agreement. So that was our report to the City Commission yesterday. You guys have anything to add?
Just to echo David, sorry he can't be here. He had to run back for meetings this morning, and so you have Costa and I here remain. Make sure we can make the meeting and continue to show. We remain enthusiastic, as David indicated yesterday. It's a project that we're committed to. It's a project which we want to undertake. Today, actually, is one year ago this month that we started from approval of concepts to move forward with documentation and some of the planning. And though I think we'd all agree that it's taken longer than we anticipated, we'd also agree that it's been worthwhile and an appropriate amount of time and effort has been expended because of the complexity of the project and the significance and the importance of getting it right. You don't get a second chance to put a firm foundation. If you don't have a firm foundation, your property will not be built to withstand the length of time that this needs to happen. The time that it has taken has certainly resulted in some changes in one place. It is not, from our estimation, impacted the cost of the project because of the economy the way it has been. It's not impacted the anticipated cost. It has not decreased enthusiasm not only of ourselves but of our partners in moving this forward. If anything, the folks on the NPAF, Southern Independent Baseball, want to speed things up. They're excited to move things forward, as is our hotel operator. We have done a lot outside these documents, with now receiving the comments on the architectural agreement. We're moving forward with solidifying that, with having submitted and received comments back, feedback from the city on the selection process, two-step selection process for the construction manager risk. Though that part is in place. The documentation continues. The work has been done by the city, not only in the physical changes that you see at the former police force building, but also what you don't see, which is the plan that's done for the relocation of utilities that will be needed to support this project. There's a lot of things that are happening that we don't get a chance to see. We've also, on our side, reached out to a number of other communities who have, as well as development partners, for additional information on how they have gone through recent new design, builder, construction manager risk selection processes to keep our finger on the marketplace for what we might expect as far as general conditions and cost of work and things such as that. We've also tapped them to look at what's included in that cost of work from what they're seeing, what rates they're experiencing, and also what selection criteria that we would establish up front and come to this body and committee to make sure that we all agree on how we're going to be rating these entities as they respond coming forward. So many of the things that we're going to rely upon, in fact, the vast majority of things we're going to rely upon to move this forward are now in place. The new market tax credits and the senior debt, the Civitas piece, the senior debt, the EB5, same thing, remains ready to go, remains ready to start its process. The new market tax credits with the, I think it's 8 letters of support we received through the community here, which is an important component to attract the new market tax credits, have been received by the consultant who's looking to attract the new market tax credits, and they have gone to market to start that process. The equity portion of it, because there's essentially 3 components to the financing, not including the different agreements and things you're talking about here, which would repay those, service those investments. But the 3 components, the equity also is very strong. The initial investors that were ready had placed that, because the time frame had placed those funds elsewhere, but the Anastone Group, which is the partner for equity, sees it as strong and not a problem moving forward. I'd like to thank all of you in the committee. David recognized yesterday, and I think it's appropriate to do that here as well, the work of the committee, the innumerable hours that they have spent, and Marcus and your legal counsel has spent going over the documents. It's been a huge effort, and without all the work that they put into it, and I'm sure to their chagrin as to rereading and reading documents, they have done a tremendous job, and we really appreciate that. So one thing I would bring back out to comment to Mr. Brown's comment on the MPED. The MPED is critical to moving this forward. The new market tax credit program, to be able to attract them, I don't know how familiar you, because we don't talk about it all the time. New market tax credits is a federal program. It's a federal program where the federal government issues a number of tax credits. Community development entities, certified development entities, are the ones that then are the allocatees from the federal government that say, we put in applications each year, and the federal government picks a number of them and says, you get an allocation of new market tax credits. Part of their application, they tell the federal government, these are the objectives that we plan to achieve as we take the new market tax credits and apply them to projects. So they look to the different projects that are out there to invest to make sure that it accomplishes a number of objectives. They're looking to make a significant impact in the community. The new market tax credits, though they're an investment to the hotel, is a critical component, as we've always talked, about moving the entire project forward. Further, the lease and development agreement, which this body has approved, also includes a condition preceding to the lease becoming effective, that there is an agreement with Coca-Cola to move that forward. There's the anticipation that it is one project. And so, and EB5 money also measures, if you'll recall how EB5 money measures and how it can invest, it takes a look at the number of jobs. And so it's also taking a look at the overall economic activity that's created in a period of time to justify the investment of EB5 loans. So that's looking at, thank you very much, Krista, just a good reminder, the investment for the total project from the parking garage, from the streetscape, from the MPED, and from the hotel to justify the senior debt that they would bring to the table. So it's all intertwined. And from this point, all the words that we have heard, all the discussion that has taken place has indicated that will move forward. Discussions with, I think Coca-Cola has been, as they company, they're a quality organization with a very good community focus, and they have worked very hard, I believe, to assist the community. And I believe the discussions with them that they are working through and from what we hear, and we anticipate that it will be going forward. But to alleviate the concerns that the board expressed with the TERS, you have an agreement which is based on everything we move forward, and so far the indications are that it will, and I can't imagine why it would not. I'd like to say thank you for moving these things forward, and we look forward to being back with you the next quarterly report to talk about the selection process, to talk about where we are with programming and schematic design, and moving things forward. We see it as important to bring the contractor on early. In some ways it mirrors a design build that you have the architect and contractor on, but it's different, and the responsibility of those two entities rests with the owner of the contract rather than a design build where the architect works for the contractor. it makes for a cleaner, more efficient program, and we think more effectively. Crystal, if I missed anything, what would you add to?
Just the status of the last documents, set of documents that we need to finalize.
And we have, in moving things forward now that our focus has been this, as is the board's, rightfully so, on the hotel, because it is the pattern that we will utilize going forward, the MPEV, and with the lease and development agreement, that document for the MPEV has now been drafted and provided to the city legal counsel to start that process. And I believe with us making some additional headway, we will begin having discussions on that as well. Thank you very much for all your time and effort that you devoted to this project.
Appreciate the work, appreciate you being with us. Committee, what's our committee? The Project Advisory Committee.
Now moves the PAC.
Pac-Man.
Right. It's time for the committee to take a deep breath again and launch into the next lease and development agreement. And Jared, I don't know if you've had much of a chance to again, even from your perspective. Probably.
It has not. Of course, it's in Paul Sanders' hands as well. Paul, again, kind of his initial review. There is one fundamental structural difference in that document versus what we've done today, or done today, and that is that your hotel is a privately funded project on public property. Your garage is public funded as a private retail component associated with it. The actual MPEV, of course, is 100% funded eventually by the revenue bonds to be issued by the city to pay for both of those. And it carries with it a return back to the project to help support the repayment of those debts. So that's something that we'll be looking at with the committee's permission, with Coach and Joe's permission. If Marcus and I could get through the next probably 3 weeks of city budgets, we'd be glad to jump into that full steam ahead and follow on that. I think in the interim, as y'all might have seen from some of the charts that we've looked at in the past, a substantial amount of work relative to those conditions preceding have now been completed by the various public bodies to which those were assigned. Of course, the Center City agreement coming along here pretty quick, probably within the next month or two, maybe by September. And then, beyond that, we need to, of course, kind of stand back for just a little bit, but allow the process that's underway with Coca-Cola to stay underway. Be ready to follow that with appropriate lease and development agreement, various associated parts of it. Really look forward to Wallace McJolly getting the architect and the construction manager at risk engaged and getting that group moving. I agree with them bringing that contractor on up front. Can produce tremendous benefits. It can save time, it can save money, it can help design a project that can be built more simply, more quickly, more completely. We've seen that have some positive effect on a few projects around here. So very much looking forward to that. Soon will be the point of looking at those actual schematic designs, taking the concepts that you've seen so far and turning those into schematics and getting them ready to go. One of the deliverables for the parties, of course, in addition to the actual design or the actual budgets, will be the schedules. Those schedules will drive further action not only by this body, but ultimately by the city commission as you approach the period of time to where the public side of the funding needs to be approved, issued, and made available to the projects. So still a lot moving there, and be glad to distribute the document to the 3 members of the PAC would like to start a preliminary review.
Well, has Paul Sanders already looked at the draft MPEV?
He's doing that now,
It's been
right?
sent to him. No, I haven't heard any comment yet.
So can we kind of tee him up to get done with his part by the time you guys are available again?
Sure.
So we don't lose momentum. And I think there's going to be some pretty substantial changes just driven by the financing part of it. If he can make the headway of giving us something to look at.
We'll be glad to get him doing that, and see if we can reduce that to some summary level, points, so we'll know where to focus. A lot of it will be the same. Should be a much simpler process than what we just completed.
Coach?
Yeah, I got a quick question. Is the finalizing and the execution of that document contingent on completing a transaction with Coke, or is it, can it be executed
Contingent upon.
with a contingency built in, if you will? That,
I think that's something I'd like to discuss, but I think that's something we should do as part of the negotiation.
I don't think we have an answer to that question yet.
okay.
Probably a variety of ways that could be accomplished.
Yeah.
Jared, do you want to make any mention of the utility relocation status?
We'd be glad to. And in fact, we need to leave our building today and go to the east corner of the parking lot. You'll see the first phase of that. There's a very large directional boring machine out there. That machine today is a project that was approved by the City Commission 4 to 5 weeks ago. That is the communication data center component. It's a project the city was going to do anyway. We have our own fiber in different locations around downtown, a lot of which has aged to the point it won't carry what we need it to carry. Coupling that with these projects has allowed us to set in play a phase that will ultimately build an entire loop. As you're well aware, we have a lot of telecommunications and data capacity over the building we own at 8th and Pierce. That stuff runs at all different odd angles through the parking lots in City Hall and different side streets and so forth. So this was an opportunity to both benefit and encourage the downtown redevelopment, and also to get some basic infrastructure for us. So that's underway. That machine came in first of this week. They were actually drilling this morning when I came into work.
How deep is it going to go if you're going to bore?
Rod, I don't know the baseline other than being directional. It's going to actually do some of this as we go around, they go around existing stuff that's underground. And that's one of the real powers of that kind of technology, be able to steer those bores.
They're good at it, too.
They're very good, and I've seen this company work not only in Amarillo but in many other places, and they've done some stuff. I don't know how it works, but they've done some neat stuff. Major portion of the utilities relocation project, of course, will be your larger utilities, that being water, wastewater, electricity, gas, and then the private side of telecommunications, which in our case is both AT&T and Suddenlink. They have some shared capacity in different places. Project is in the final design stages that will allow the relocation of most, if not all, of those utilities into a single common trench. It's a concept that's been successfully used in larger cities as they run out of space. It's kind of new to us. Everybody's been in their own pit. We have a design. It's pretty impressive to look at. It would relocate all these utilities from 5th Street, and Mr. Pittner said 7th yesterday. That's correct, but we're also going to reach a little farther and reach up to 9th Street. That supports not only these projects, that takes out some aging infrastructure that all of the different utilities have in different parts of downtown. And it's also more than a relocation project. It's a capacity project. It brings some upsizing capabilities to support not only what's here today, but what we hope comes in the future. And as such, those are projects ultimately each of us would have had to do. Logic behind this will be that the city will be the kind of the general contractor, so to speak. When we start, a excavation company will come in, they will open this ditch, and we can start either on 5th or on 9th, just depending on what's most appropriate on that day. They'll start that ditch, we'll run up Pierce Street with the ditch. The ditch is shaped somewhat like a double inverted T so that everybody has their own channel within the ditch. Basically, you don't dig up an electric line to get to a water line, that kind of logic. We'll open that ditch. Each of the various parties then is committed to a certain time frame in which they'll get their utility laid and set. The big contractor, the excavation contractor, will come back and close it. And, we expect that once that starts, depending upon weather, as far as time of year when we ultimately pull the trigger and get moving on that, we hope to be completely done, Pierce Street put back, everything
90 days or less. It's gonna displace a phenomenal amount of dirt. At one end it's 15 feet wide and 15 feet deep, at the other end it's 15 feet wide and I don't remember, 8 or 9 feet deep.
So you're shutting Pierce down?
Not entirely. The
But
price
it's
is
just
what-
from 9th Street down Pierce to City Hall.
Actually, be Ninth to Fifth.
The fifth.
To Fifth, the corner back here behind the Globe
Right,
Center.
okay, so you pick up that, but it's not going any further west.
No. But these will be the trunks, so to speak, that can be connected to later for the branch lines coming in. Obviously, storm sewer won't be in that, but I don't think we're gonna have major issues with the storm sewer. Richard, your question about kind of some oversights that I think the city could volunteer to help us with. Of course, as Joe and Costa do their work and their design professionals, all that's under your standard process for city building codes, building permits, building inspections, et cetera. What I would suggest and offer to this board would be a model similar to what the city used, is just kind of having an extra set of eyes on the construction when the Global Center was built. Ultimately, that was, the city's to maintain and so forth. We have a gentleman that works for us, his name is Jerry Danforth. He runs our facilities group. He's in charge of almost every square foot that the city owns, which is hundreds of thousands of square feet. Jerry has got extensive experience as a commercial and industrial contractor. Carries some licenses in some other states that Texas doesn't even offer or require. He's managed several projects for us, both on a design element, a contractor element, and contractor oversight. He's done a great job. Jerry is leading the group that has the utilities, including us, all working together on the common trench project. He's ready, willing, and able to help us, help this LGC in that same oversight role, if that's something you would like to do. I'm very comfortable with his abilities, very comfortable.
What we talked about in the back committee is there's gonna be some technical stuff here that we don't get. And we don't wanna be doing this day to day. So we need some kind of interface. Parky has nothing else to do, he could be here all day.
Oh, yeah, sure. You know, the money we're getting is earning kind of fees as far as wages.
It's for the lunch, but.
Use me as much as you want, oh, it's for the lunch.
Hey, Don, that's all.
We will purchase and provide Mr. Parkey his very own hard hat.
See if you can get Ken King's cowboy hat for him. Gillen's got some cowboy hats that are hard hat. That's what you need.
That cowboy hat's bigger than you is.
Well, his dad's got one, that's what it's bigger.
Wind might just lift me off my.
Joe, it might be,
Light as I am.
it might be, well, it is probably premature, but what kind of preliminary work has gone on in terms of retail space and prospective tenants or thoughts there? In the garage structure retail, 40,000 square feet.
Roughly. Well, actually, we started the process meeting with consultants. We started last year, actually, before everything with ICSC. We dealt with a number of potential restaurants. We've had discussions here locally. There were a lot of discussions initially that moved this thing forward, and then with the agreements we had held off until we got back to the design stage, because what we found is we piqued a lot of interest, and when you pique a lot of interest and then you have a delay, you lose the credibility of that market. So we have backed off at that time frame, but we had our about on that effort. We'll come back to it when the time frame works. We're starting through design. We had interest expressed from a number of restaurants. We actually originally had some discussions and tried to with folks at Tucatota, but they obviously decided to move to a different site. So there were any number of conversations, but nothing solid at that time, and there won't be until we have more information.
Let me just add to that, we have a retail consultant that's going to be helping us with this, but at the same time, the value add that you will give is working with the architect to make sure the spaces are designed for some of the tenants that she's experienced in the past, putting them in parking structures like this, and what some of the design elements that they would need to make it a usable space for that particular types. So the architects will work on generality. Sorry, I can't say that today. But then obviously the specifics would be a good feedback from the design.
So it mixed with a Coke.
Yeah, something. So we will reinitiate all of that once we know it, once we move forward and know exactly the layouts and all that stuff. So.
And back to the kind of the status again, the things that the city commission accomplished yesterday, the second tier's agreement on the 90% reimbursement for the ad valorem taxes was done yesterday, as was what's called the economic incentive agreement, which included the incentive pieces dealing with the local and state pieces of the hotel occupancy tax and the state sales tax piece. It was all acted upon favorably by the commission yesterday. So I think that's a pretty good status report of where we are at this point. The next several months are going to be Oh, yeah, the Center City piece, I will be meeting with the executive committee of Center City, I think it's week after, to formalize their previous commitment for the $400,000 in contributions for the streetscape endeavor. They have been provided with a draft contract, and we'll visit with them and formalize and finalize that. I don't expect any major issues. The commitment was made back in August of last year, and I have no indication that that's going to be changed whatsoever. So, in fact, they'll have several more opportunities to hold block parties, and I'm sure I'll get my invitation to attend the block party. Fortunately, I'm not working the block party. I'm taking this
Bomb fireworks.
Okay, anybody have anything else to add or ask about the status of the?
Well, when do you think our group will be getting back together to work on these?
What I was thinking, Marcus, if you could talk to our outside counsel, I mean, he's got a life and a schedule too, but what I was hoping was he could make that agreement his own during August, where he's happy with it and he's got the financial piece in place. So, you know, last year I think we lost momentum during Thanksgiving and Christmas, so I think we should be targeting, we want this done in September, October. And so in my mind, it's outside counsel gets out in August and then we get it done.
I'll call your email today.
And get off vacation.
Yeah, that works for me, and the interaction with Mark, back and forth.
Who's been good to work with too? We should acknowledge him. Mark Arnold.
Their counsel.
Oh, are they gonna have a lawyer too?
And you know, there are lawyers everywhere around the table. They're everywhere. All right, we'll move on to item number 6 on the agenda, which is the opportunity for public comment from citizens on matters directly related to the work of the local government corporation. Is anyone here to make comment?
Could we note in the minutes that the press was here, but that no other members of the public were here?
Thanks, Ron.
The press is here?
Okay, hearing none, we have an opportunity, and I think we will exercise that opportunity for a closed session at this point. As is captioned here, discuss the provincial purchase sale or lease of downtown property, together with economic incentives that may be available, and for attorney-client communication, all consistent with the Texas Local Government Code and the appropriate chapters and verses thereof. And it is 12.